Hey there, Northern Valley Youth Orchestra trombonists. My name is Ryan Christianson, and welcome to my practice room here at DePaul University. In a little bit smaller space and being maybe a little less formal than when we did a audition video this past fall. But we've been looking at this piece, this Eritaj, that you guys have been working on, and wanted to give you guys a few quick tips as to how to get through this a little bit better. This is a challenging piece for both tenor and bass trombone. A lot of really difficult things for any level of player to get through, but I just wanted to give you guys a few ideas on how to approach certain things and just some other ideas that might help kind of contextualize the style for you a little bit better. So right getting at it, we're looking at this opening section, and this opening section provides especially a challenge for the bass trombone, but also some kind of idiomatic things in the tenor trombone part as well. When we see this line over the notes, we're getting tenuto. This is going to be a big thing throughout the whole experience, is just figuring out how to handle these note lengths and articulations. When I see this in this style, and I see this with the recording that we've been sent just to get an idea of how it all works, I think what I'm hearing here is the idea of weight on the front and sustain through the note for the tenor trombone player. So being sure that we're really getting a clear articulation, still using that tongue, but we are keeping the note moving into the next one. We want a sense of direction, even through a simple line like this. So you'll excuse me, I'm looking at my phone here, so I might mess up a rhythm, but something like this in terms of getting that direction. 1, 2. You hear that, just a little bit of a push through each note. D, da, D, 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 right? Even on a simple figure like that, if we can start establishing that idea at the beginning, it's going to pay dividends as we go through the piece. Bass trombone, you have a completely different challenge when we're here. And the more I look at this part, the more I really wish I brought my bass trombone with me. We get a lot of low stuff and a lot of articulate low stuff with accents. So what I would encourage you to do is to realize that you can use a lot more space than you realize, than you would probably initially think. We don't need that forward. What we need to be is to be really, really in time. And because bass trombone is such a big instrument that takes a lot of air to get these notes to speak, our tendency is going to be behind, right? So we can combat that by actually thinking just a little bit shorter on our note lengths. Be thinking just a little bit shorter. And another thing that a lot of young students, I think, make a mistake with when we're looking at a passage like this, a figure like this, is that we see all these accents and we think we need to go knock the doors down on all of them. But in this register, you really don't. You want to use a light tongue. You're going to work with your air, but keep your tongue super light. If you do over-articulate, you're going to end up sending that pitch center all over the place. So what we really want, the temptation when we look at this is to say, okay, we get to play loud and low, hooray. But what we really want to be focusing on, rather than loud and low, we want to be centered in terms of pitch, and we want to be in time. So we need to really set up this groove. So if I were to play it, I would play something like this, and this is not any exaggeration. Something along those lines, right? You can hear how there's a little bit of space in those quarter notes. D, da, 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 da. I'm not trying to make them go into one another, and I'm also not trying to hit them too hard with my tongue, okay? So there we go. Moving on to the next big section here for us. Looking at letter B. Letter B is another good challenge, especially for the tenor trombone player, because this is in such a low register for tenor trombone. But I think the big thing that we want to get across here is to get the character of this. And when I see it, we have this kind of confusing marking here. We've got a tenuto with a staccato. Well, how do we do that? To my ears, when I see this rhythmic figure as well, I'm thinking that this marking is likely indicating that we're thinking like a pizzicato bass, like in a jazz combo or something like that. We're looking for this doom 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 boom 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 bing bing boom. Excuse my singing there. But if we can kind of get that same approach on the trombone, this a little bit of front and a lot of decay. Not necessarily super staccato, but we want this do, dee, dee, ding, 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 ding. Helps to feel the groove a little bit too. So something like. Something like that. Yep, again, I think I missed a note at the end, but that idea of this do, ding, ding. But just be hearing, imagining yourself as a string bassist playing pizzicato. Doom, ding, doom, doom, ding, ding, right? That's what we want. And bass trombone, just a quick thing for you, because I'm not certain what kind of instrument you're playing on. I know you have a low B in that figure. If you were playing a trombone that looks like this, with one trigger on there, you don't have that B. It doesn't exist. Despite what you might think, we actually lose a position when we put this trigger down, if you were unaware of that before. So that low B might not exist for you. You can make it happen by pulling this tuning slide like off like that. But honestly, it's not worth the hassle. If I were you, I'd just pop that note up an octave. If you have two tuning slides, if you got a double trigger, or I should say 3 tuning slides, but if you have 2 triggers, then you would likely have that note, and it's just up to you to figure out where it lives. If when you put both of them down, you play a D, it's probably going to be somewhere in the realm of like what you would normally think of as 5th position. If when you put both of these triggers down, you get an E flat, you're going to be out 7th-ish for that low B, okay? Which would be actually very convenient because then you get to just stand 7th for the whole thing. But cool, so there's that. Moving on, taking a look at just a quick thing here, yeah, pick up into D, this bar. This is a confusing one to me because I come out of a commercial and jazz background just as much as orchestra stuff, and I see this figure in 62, the bar before D, and I see all of these rooftop accents, and to me that means they're all short. Unfortunately, in this case, they're not. That first one is short, and the rest of them are not. Da, dee, da, da, dee, da, right, is what we're looking for. So just, you know, match the people around you. You'll be fine. I don't need to play that for you. When we move on, though, into letter D, we're looking at the bass trombone part, which gets challenging again. On that same note, talking about like finding where that B is for you. This is a section where it's going to really pay off for you to figure out where do these notes live most comfortably for me on my instrument. All right. So if it was me playing and I was playing my bass trombone and I'm looking at letter D here, I'm putting all of those low Ds in a double trigger first because that's the kind of bass trombone I have. I don't know what you're using. So you might have those there. They might need to be in a trigger flat 5th-ish, around 5th. That's what trigger 4th is going to end up being close to 5th position. Yeah, so just finding out what positions work for you. Bebop, oh, bebop. Yeah, especially like in 65 going into 66. If you're playing on a single trigger, there's a spot there where I'd consider playing your first F in trigger first and then jumping out to 6th so you can get those low Cs. So I'll just show you, just in case you're playing a single trigger, like I am here for, this is my tenor trombone, but they do make single trigger bass trombones. I might play this, I'm going to play this a little bit slow, but watch for what I do with those positions in measures 65 and 66. So here we are, I'm just start right on letter D. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Okay, sorry, I chipped a little bit there. Let me do that one more time, but if you check this out, I'm going to go. So I repeat the F in first, and then go out to 6th for it one more time. and then I can get the C comfortably from that F and sixth. Okay? Yeah, and I think when you're getting through this section, yeah, you just want to be able to know all that stuff, know where you're at, but ultimately don't let anything get in the way of the groove there. You know, it should feel really fun and very danceable, I think, as you go through this. Next big section, actually a good spot to commit to that kind of a figure, is getting into F. Bass trombone, again, when you have these short accents in the pickup measure, da-ga-da-da-ga-da-da-ga-da-da-dee, stay even lighter, even shorter than you think you need to be in order to get through it. Yep. Nice and crisp, nice and crisp. But once we get into those figures at F, then we get to kind of really sell the articulations that you would put in here and make it sound like a party. So I might do something like this. Yeah, I think I got the notes right. But that idea, boom, 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 just leaning in, putting in the accents where they need to be. When you get this that slur, make it a little. You can make it a little trombone-y. Beam, bum, ba dum, ba, be-ya-da, bum, 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 beam, bum, ba da, ba, ba. Yeah, commit to it. Commit to the articulations that you have there. Nice. So now we're coming to the end of this piece. Again, it looks like an absolute challenge. This is the one spot where I have more to say to the tenor trombonist as we get into J. Now, obviously, there's some range things here, but that's the big thing when we're going through this section. It's challenging, but you got to pick your battles. When I was listening through the piece, I noticed we're in the high register for a long time, but we're really not carrying a melody. We're not really bringing things to the front. We're more of a textural voice. So what you want to be able to do is just stay out of the way. When we see these big crescendos, okay, yeah, we'll support, but we don't need to overblow. We don't need to work too hard. And the job then is to pick your spots. Where does this become really important? Okay, and that leads us to a bigger question: is what's going on around us, and how much can we pull from that? So actually, I'm going to give you one quick little point here, and this is just to get you starting to think on a more professional level on what we do. Because when you get into this stuff, and when you get into playing trombone for a living, like I've been fortunate to do, everybody can play all the parts. There's no issue. What sets people apart becomes how do you hear and react to what's going on around you? How do you hear and react to what's going on around you? So one thing that I noticed on my first listen through here that I would be taking out my pencil in a rehearsal and marking is in measures 142 and 143. Now this just looks totally inconspicuous, especially with all of these, since we've already established we're really textural. We're not really doing anything melodic up in this register. But when I listened to this, I noticed something, that the chord changed over the bar line there. And we went from this really nice D major chord, I think with a B flat in it, maybe, I haven't really looked at the score, to now going to this E flat sound. And you're still holding on to the A flat in that, and it resolves down to a G. That's what we call a suspension. And they give you this with the rest of this orchestra on this diminuendo, on this decrescendo. But one thing that I would notice then, if I were playing this part, I would hear that and be like, oh, wait, that's important. That A flat, this is not super important there. When you go here, now it's really important. So bringing out, even playing piano through that first measure and actually nudging up to a mezzo piano on the second, on 143, nudging up and then actually sustaining a little bit louder and then coming down. That's the kind of stuff, when you really start noticing these things, you can start bringing all that out. I would play it for you, but it's kind of out of context to just hear trombone by itself on that. So don't be a hero on everything else, but when you hear that spot, quiet through the first bar, up a little bit, and then you relax through the resolution is what we call it, where it becomes the G. Right? Cool. Yeah, so that's about that. You know, it's funny is as we get to K, then we get this beautiful counter melody in the second bar of K. I suppose it's a counter melody again. I'm kind of figuring this out as I go, but we have to play. We get this beautiful melodic line that's now in our octave, an octave down. But so it's like we do all this work to just hang out up here for forever, and then it's like, ah, man. We're just gonna, when we actually play a melodic line, we're gonna hop down. But just stay super broad. Imagining like you're painting, you're setting up like the background. I don't know, you guys probably don't watch Bob Ross, but like if you ever watch Bob Ross, he usually sets up the painting by like painting like the background first, and he's using these nice broad brush strokes. That's actually always what I think about when I play something like this. But right, something like that. Do, dee, da, dee, da, dee. Nice and broad. Okay. So that's kind of where we're at with this. That's about all I have to say for you guys. It's a really fun piece. Hopefully I'll get to hear it at some point. And if you guys have any questions, let Ms. Welsh know, and she can let me know if I can help you guys with anything else further. But that was just a quick little crash course. I suppose not quick at this point, about 17 minutes long, but a crash course on some of the difficult parts of this piece. Good luck to you, and all the best.